over the opener first. If y'all would go ahead and open, I'll give you a second to look over your, yes, group 1 and group 2, the quiz is going to be the second thing that we're going to do. And then after about like, it shouldn't take you more than a couple minutes, probably like about 5. And then we'll sort of walk through that Google slide a little bit. But for this opener, yesterday should have been a lot easier for you than the ionic stuff.
Which one are we doing?
Yesterday was the covalent, the prefix. Wait, which one? What? It's groups just 1 and 2 on the top 2. Well, on the left hand side, first and the second one down. How do you know on the bottom part, because it was mixed from yesterday's paper, how do you know if you're using the ionic compound rules or the covalent compound rules? The covalent molecular, same thing. Which one has prefixes? Right. And which one was that? Ionic or molecular? It was the molecular or the covalent. Those words are interchangeable. So if it has a prefix in it, which means it's nothing but non-metals, then that's what we did yesterday. And most of you picked up on yesterday's pretty easy. Where mono is 1 and di is 2 and tri is 3, all the way up to 10 is deca. However, if it starts with a metal, okay, or if it starts with the ammonium ion, the NH4 plus 1, then it's the ionic rules, and you have to do charges and crisscross, and sometimes look for Roman numerals. And if you have an iter or an 8, and you got more than 1, you need parentheses. The ionics are a lot more complicated. So molecular is nothing but nonmetals. Those use the prefixes. Ionics normally start with a metal, except for ammonium, because that's a polyatomic ion. And those were the ones that use charges. Sometimes you needed a Roman numeral to tell you your charge. So in Canvas, if you go to, I don't want you guys seeing everybody's grades. Right. If there's a prefix, then it's starting with nonmetals, and that is the covalent or the molecular. You hear teachers go back and forth with that stuff. Oh, this is frozen. In Canvas, once you finished with the opener, I'm going to give you all a few minutes to do this polyatomic ion quiz set 1. And then you need to open up this practice Google slide assignment thing. And I'm going to freeze it here, because this is going to help us. This is sort of like a review. The stuff that's in black was if it was ionic. The stuff that's in blue was if it was covalent. Let's see, let me double check online. Okay. Oh, you're going to need the access code to the quiz, which the access code is, let me double check it and make sure it's still what it was before. Yes, the access code is IONS. It is all lowercase, IONS. It's both of them. It's quiz 1. Quiz, I should have said just, let me change that so it's not so confusing. It's quiz number 1, which is set 1 and 2. But here, I'll change it. Which now you probably can't see it. Okay, so if you see how they're not subscripts. Okay, so up in the instructions, it had said that when you first came in, like if here, I'll just type it on the screen so that they can see what I'm doing too. Okay, so because in instructions, I can do the subscripts and the superscripts, but in the answers, I can't. Okay, so the numbers in between, those should be subscripts, and then the -1 or whatever over on the side, that should be the superscript. Is that what you're asking? Yeah, hold on. Okay, so this would be capital N, capital O, a 2 number with a -1 charge. It won't, y'all. It will not let me. That's why it said in the instructions. And I had mentioned this the other day. If I go out. Okay, so like in the, and make it bigger. Okay, so like I said yesterday, Canvas will not let me do this in the answer choices, like in it, but it'll let me do this. It'll only let me do this up in instructions. So this would be C with a 2, an H with a 3, an O with a 2, and the whole thing carries a -1 charge. Yes. Ions, lowercase IONS. Let me edit this and do. Add that in here for students who are absent. Here. Here. Okay. Lost where I was. Okay, there's no extras. Each one's used once. I'm not trying to trick you. I do need to do attendance in here. See Emma. And Hayden, I just got the message that you're lucky at home for 14 days. I don't see Austin, Asher, Tucker, Douglas, Lily, Grayson, Tyson, Samantha, Trevor. Breland, Cademan, Justin, Benson. Okay, everybody else is here. Like I said, once you're done with that, you can open up that Google slide thing, and we will do a little bit of it together. I can't do subscripts and superscripts down in the answer choices. So like, okay, so this would be an H with a little 2, and then a big P, a big O, and a little 0 with a -1. It won't let me do that. It won't let me do that down here. And I think you actually have 2 attempts. I think it's still on there from first period because it's like this. So like this one. It should be written like this. I can't do that in the answer choices down on Canvas. It won't let me do it. Like, and then the one that looks like this should be this way. One that looks like this should be this way. The numbers should all be down, and then the negative whatever should be up. I can't, like I said, I'm sorry, it's just the Canvas, it will not let me do that down on the bottom, only up in instructions. Here's a second attempt. We're having technical difficulties over here. Let me write this down and then we'll get Michael. Okay, have I given y'all enough time? Do you need a couple more minutes? You need a couple more minutes, okay. Yeah, I haven't graded anything. I have all these piles.
Told me to read it this to see if they'll take it.
I don't know. I'll figure that out. I'll put it in my thing. I'll think about it.
If they're actually like, it's really late.
I'm not having a I'm trying to figure out how to do this. What is it? Are those supposed to be low?
I put a couple different ones up on the board. The negative goes up. That's the charge. Yeah. Everything is all digital. We're just stalling for a little bit, make sure everybody's on the same page, so I don't. The passcode to get in ions. Okay, give it just a couple more minutes and then we'll get started, because it would be nice if you guys don't have to do any work for me over the weekend. If you had not turned in the ion nomenclature, that's definitely due today. And then the two other the formulas, what is it called? Writing formulas for compounds 1 and 2. I'm looking for them as well. I don't know if any of you have turned them in electronically, because I have not gotten to this class. But once again, if you have not done so, go ahead and open up that Google slide. I'm just double checking something very, very, very fast. Okay, there is one that's on here that needs to be done. Okay, let me get into this. Okay, so what I have on the board is just a refresher between ionics and covalents. Ionics will start with metals. Yes, there is the one exception of the ammonium ion. You have to use charges and crisscross them if they don't end to 0. If there's only 2 elements in it, like LiCl, 2 elements, then that second thing ends in "ide." If it's got one of those, which I don't think I can reach it, one of these on them, they probably end in "ide" or 8. If you need more than one of these polyatomic ions, they got to go in parentheses. And your metals, if they're outside of group 1 and group 2, there's a very good chance that it's going to need a Roman numeral. The only exceptions being zinc, cadmium, silver, and aluminum. The stuff that's over on the right, the stuff in blue that we did yesterday that most of you picked up on, there's none of that. Now, they do end in "ide." They all end in "ide." Don't write ones. They do not write a 1 as a subscript. It's wrong if you do that. But what we use instead with covalents, which start with nonmetals, we use all prefixes, and it should have been a lot easier for you. This should be the one that you guys opened up. Make sure you put your, oh, I need to take it off of presentation mode so I can see. So you put your name here, okay? And then this is just wants to know if you have 2 nonmetals, what type of bond does it make? If you have a group, if you have, oh, well, you guys haven't been talking. Now that is so mean that she put that in there. Okay, so the way I want you to answer this one, not hydrogen. If it's a group, well, yeah, do it that way. If you're bonding hydrogen, which is a nonmetal, with something over here, would you call it? It really should be an acid. I don't like this part. From what you understand, when you have a nonmetal and a nonmetal, what type of bond is that? And then when you have a metal and a nonmetal, even whether it's over here or it's in here, what type is that? And then we get into figuring out the charge for a transition metal, which is, it walks you right through it. Okay, so we do not know the charge of lead. Okay, I know that I'm going to need a Roman numeral because sometimes lead is +2 and sometimes it's +4. You may not know that. I do. I know it needs a Roman numeral. It's not in group 1 and it's not in group 2 and it's not one of those 4 exceptions. So the way that you do this, you do know the charge of oxygen. Each oxygen carries a charge of -2 or 2 negative. I don't care. But you have 2 oxygens. And 2 times -2 is a total -4 charge. Okay, well, the whole compound has to be 0. So if you know the negative charge is -4, then the positive charge has to be the opposite of that. It has to be +4 to add up to 0. Great. So you have a charge of +4. We don't write a 1, so there's only 1 lead. Each lead has to have the full, because it's 1 lead, has to have a full charge of +4 to add up to 0. So this is the lead 4 oxide ion. Not ion, compound, ionic compound. So once again, you're going to know, and I'm going to walk through one with you. You're going to know the charge of the negative ion. Okay? You do not know the charge of the positive ion. We are figuring that out because there's more than one type of iron. So find sulfur and tell me what sulfur's charge is. I know it's negative. How negative is sulfur? -2. Everything in group 6 is -2 if it's working as an anion. So how many sulfur atoms do you have, though, in Fe2S3? You have 3 of them. So each one has a charge of -2. What is 3 times -2? -6. So my negative side is -6. In order to add to 0, the positive side has to be a total of +6. If you want to add to 0. So I have a total of +6. How many irons are in Fe2S3? What's the number after the iron? 2. And what is 6 divided by 2? +3. So if each iron is +3, my Roman numeral is going to be I. You're working backwards to figure out the charge. So let me do this one more time to make sure I didn't lose anybody, because I'm not going to do the other ones for you. We're literally multiplying and dividing, and it's like small numbers. So okay, so we knew sulfur was in group 6, so it's -2. But inside this compound, I have 2 irons and I have 3 sulfurs. Each sulfur has a charge of -2, and 3 times -2 is -6. Compound has to be neutral. So if I know that the negative side, if I like drew a line and split it in half, if this side's -6, this side has to be +6. So you take your total charge and divide it by how many of those metal atoms there are. And in this case, there's 2 of them. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. Well, plus 3. And the Roman numeral is capital I to represent 3. And you're going to end up doing that for the copper. See, I did one of them for you. You're going to do the other one for me. After that, there's a little tutorial that you can watch. The play button's right here in the middle. Y'all, we do not write ones. And you only need parentheses if you have more than one. You don't write parentheses if you have one. And so that's on you. And check for polyatomic ions, crisscross ionic charges. You're going to build the compound. These are all ionic. Y'all, the 8s, that is over here, right here. Oh, it won't let me highlight it. If they're ides, with the exception of hydroxide and cyanide, it's hydroxide. Cyanide's not even on the list. If they're ides, they're elements. So you're going to write the formula, knowing the charges and the symbols. Make sure you capitalize right. Ammonium is the only positive polyatomic ion. The ite is a polyatomic ion. These 2 ides, they are atoms. This is from nitrogen and this is from oxygen. These Roman numerals tell you the charge. This tells you that your lead is +4 and that your chromium is +3. You need to crisscross them. This is the same thing, but for molecular, it's just prefixes. Most of you picked up on this a lot better. I even gave you the prefixes over here on the side. Same thing for this one. In this particular section and the next one, you're going to identify if they're ionic or covalent. That's what these are for. You can circle which one it is. And then you're going to write the formula, and so these are a mixture of ionic and covalent, sort of like the bottom of the paper that we did yesterday. That's what y'all are doing for the rest of the period. Some of you may still have some questions if you finish with this early on the naming stuff. We have over 20 minutes left in here. I don't think that this Google submission thing will take you very long. I don't. I'm going to put this back up here. Whoops. Oh, I gotta make it. Subscript, you're going to do the control and then either the plus or the minus. I always forget which one's which. Control either comma or the period. I think I said plus or minus. Did not mean to say that. Okay, so it looks like everybody else that was online. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording so I can post this into Canvas.